Like I'm working with the parents, trying to help them with tools and ways to help their children. I would say 10 of them say their kids are on their phones or iPads 5 hours a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, that has to stop. You have to go to one. And I'm not kidding. We're not just tapering back. We're going to one. These kids are ruling your life. Like, who's the boss?
Yeah.
And then they want their children to make the decisions so they can make mistakes and then learn from them. But when you see, in that mindset, I feel like parents, like I said earlier, like it's just a babysitter. It's just something so they can go do something. But when you realize that the impact you're doing, you only have this short amount of time to make a difference in these kids' lives as a parent, and you're going to let this technology do it. And it's just a lazy way of parenting in my mind. But when I see these parents letting their kids be the boss of the hours on the technology and the video games and the separation, you know, you think of these children now that my kids were right in the middle of the COVID, the separation, this isolation. Um, then everyone's going all in on their technology because that's all they had,
Mm-hmm.
So they had 2 years you know, of just looking at a video game or their iPad or phone. And so that right there needs to be addressed
Mm-hmm.
from the parental standpoint. They have to realize, yeah, that was then. Now we're out of that, and we are progressing into a human world or nature. I mean, I just see this. It's the parents, and it's like I always say, when I watch these kids at any kind of event or any meal, restaurant, whatever, and they are on those phones, and you're in a family environment, you're not there's no value. There's nothing. You're not offering any value. There's no conversation. They don't know how to have a conversation.
Hmm.
you know I guess maybe with AI, you're not going to have to. You're just going to be a robot. Like what is it?
Yeah, it's an evolution, certainly to a cyborgic state. I talk with a lot of technologists and they describe it as a cyborg and they describe it as a good thing. And that for
I'm
me is
sure,
very odd. Like I don't
right?
feel that way about it. I don't I don't I don't want to be a cyborg in that sense. I want to be connected with nature and I don't mind using technology, but I also want to put it down. I
Right.
think, being able to have this conversation is a miracle in its own right, but it's also not the only thing I want to do. But I see that there's a tremendous adoption by the younger generations, the children, to actually prefer being in these digitally isolated environments. And for me, it's really concerning. You don't see it down here where I live. There's,
Hmm.
especially as soon as you go out of the city and you're in the forest, kids are playing. Kids don't, have the phones. And I think to myself that they get to have like what I would think of as like a more natural childhood. But then I also think sadly they'll never be able to compete. Like
Right.
the world will move on. The whole world's going to move
Exactly.
on and they're going to be left behind because of it. And there will be other ramifications associated with it as well. And so I try to think of how ultimately can create a balance. But
Right.
my good friends all have kids here in the city and we're right in the heart of the Amazon. So we're
Hmm.
as seemingly as isolated as you can be. The city that I live in is the largest, most isolated city in the world.
Oh,
And
wow.
so yeah, there's over 500,000 inhabitants. So it's a large city. There's 500,000 people here, half a
Hmm.
million plus. And you can only get here by plane or by water. There are no roads that connect
Oh
our
my
city to any
gosh.
other city. Yeah, and so it's a really interesting place because it is so isolated. It has its own culture. It in many ways reflects aspects of American culture from 20 or 30 years ago, maybe even more, like maybe now 30, 40 years ago. And it doesn't evolve culturally like the rest of the world that it's so connected to because of the isolation. But because of video games and because of internet, the kids are digitally addicted and the parents are having all the same problems.
Oh,
So yeah, it's unbelievable here in the city itself. Now you leave the city, so the city might, is a couple miles by a couple miles, and then you leave the city right into the forest, and it's gone. And so it really is this black and white relationship between where there is internet and where there are cell phones. And people here will spend a vast majority of their money on being able to have cell phones and internet. And it just shows how powerful this technology is, and how quickly it can change, the minds of children, and create a dependency upon it.